Welcome to Your Voice. I'm David Chilabira.
And I'm Judy Bukenya. Greetings to all of our viewers here in the US, in Africa, and around the globe. Our show here is intended to bring you different perspectives of the news happening in Uganda and in different parts of Africa. And we do this by interviewing people from different perspectives, different walks of life, with different insights on what's happening in Uganda and across Africa. And our hearts go out to all of our viewers and families who have been affected by COVID, who have lost members to COVID. Our hearts are with you, we're praying for you. And we want to continue to encourage our viewers to continue the extreme caution against COVID-19.
Yeah, and today we have two guests on our show, Brother Lamin Sabadogo and Brother Milton Alimadi, who will share their thoughts about the important role that the African diaspora can play. And we hope to have a wonderful show with you, our dear viewers. Thank you always for tuning in to Your Voice. But before we start, the Your Voice has chosen to feature the case of a Ugandan citizen who is being detained and imprisoned illegally and being deprived of his rights. As you all know, the scale of human rights abuses reached unprecedented levels during the election period. You know, thousands of Ugandans, men, young men, women, many people were illegally detained and incarcerated by the state security organs into what they term as safe houses in courts. But we know that these are torture chambers. So, and many have been tortured and killed. Some have been killed. Many people have been killed. So that's where we're coming to you at.
Honorable James Mubiru was brutally abducted by unknown men on December 12, 2020. He has written a letter from jail, and we're going to read it to you now here on You Voice. And it reads, regarding advocacy to a veiled court bail or be remanded to a civilian prison from military prison. Greetings, all comrades in the struggle, and thank you all for the endeavors you contribute to front justice and freedom in the land. I call upon everyone to intervene and do all the possible legal means to appeal to General Court Martial to avail me count. In case this is not achieved, I pray to be remanded to a civilian prison from military prison, where I was remanded on March 23rd, 2021. And they isolated me in a special room 24 hours since then to date. This happened after the CMI had kidnapped me on March 12th, 2021, and I was taken to its headquarters in Buea, where they beat and tortured me to almost the death line. By God's grace, after CMI experienced political pressure from the public demanding me live or dead, I was presented before General Court Martial, which remanded me to Machindie Military Barracks Prison under the charges of wearing military uniform. My prayer for court bail or to be remanded to civilian prison comes due to the denial of access and communication to my family, lawyers, and personal doctors. Each day, my body experiences weakness and illnesses from complicated diseases that were caused from the torture and beatings that I received at CMI. I call upon anyone who can help me in the above, and I shall be glad for your positive reaction towards it. Yours in the struggle, Mubiru James.
Wow, Judy, that is very sad and very touching, a story of an elected councillor.
That's right.
And for you, our viewers, Honorable James Mubiru was elected, and after that, he was leading a protest against these illegal arrests that were going on in the nation countrywide, and he was leading a protest to demand for political prisoners. And then, ever since then, he was badly and brutally abducted and arrested, and ever since then he disappeared. And after months of not knowing about his whereabouts, news came that he was in torture chambers and in security organs had him, and he has not been given bail all the time. So this seems to be the case for many political prisoners in Uganda. And that's why we bring it here to your voice for you to be part of this conversation and to know what really happens in Uganda.
Conditions are so horrific, David, that New York City-based Human Rights Watch released a statement on its website, and it says, quote, Uganda's 2021 elections, of which President Yoweri Museveni, in power since 1986, was declared the winner, were marred by widespread violence and repression. Security forces arbitrarily arrested and beat opposition supporters and journalists, killed protesters, and disrupted opposition rallies. There has yet to be any commitment to end the violations of freedom of association, assembly, and expression which persist in Uganda, end quote. Now let's welcome one of our guests. His name is Lamine to the show. He's originally from Mali and has been living in the US for many years. He's a business consultant who travels across Africa. So Lamine, aside from the heart-wrenching story that you just heard, tell us what you know about the conditions in Uganda and what you know of Uganda.
Hello, thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me on your show. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I live in Waltham, Massachusetts, which is a city where many Ugandans live. Yeah. So my first interaction with Uganda has been through those hardworking people who live here. From official statistics, they tell us that there are about 1,500 Ugandans here. But if you see their footprint in the city, you would think that there are many more. And when I talk about footprint, I'm talking about it in a very positive way. From businesses that are owned by Ugandans, restaurants, hair salons, and gift shops, and things like that. Entrepreneurial ventures, taxi companies, and also they are working very hard in taking care of the citizens of the city that cannot take care of themselves. Every time I go to a supermarket, I see a kind, gentle, and generous Ugandan helping mentally challenged citizens to do their shopping. It is not stopped there also. The spiritual leadership in Waltham, Ugandans have had their share in it by being the people who spearheaded the first mosque in the city of Waltham. Politically speaking also, the first Black person ever elected to the city council in Waltham was a Ugandan, Charlene. So that has been my interaction with Ugandans, very hardworking, gentle, and generous people. Every time I've gone to a Ugandan wedding or a Ugandan event, particularly the one on the Waltham Commons, which is a yearly event that showcases African culture to people in this part of the Boston area, the welcome is just amazing. Of course, Uganda is also the Makerere University, which was one of the beacons of learning on the eastern part of Africa for many, many years and continue to do so. I would be remiss if I do not recall Princess Elizabeth de Toro, who in the 70s was an amazing and competent ambassador of the country of Uganda to the United Nations. She made a speech that people quote until now. And finally, Elizabeth de Toro was also the first Black woman, as I recall, to be on the cover page of Harper Magazine and American Vogue magazine. So the beauty of African women as illustrated by this beautiful, intelligent, and very articulate woman from Uganda. Naturally, the natural beauty of your country, the pearl of Africa, as Sir Winston Churchill called the country, with beautiful places I hope to visit someday to take advantage of the source of the Nile, the nature, the birds, etc. So I'll stop there. As you can see, I am a good
Yes,
fan.
you are. You're very well versed in Uganda, our politics. Are you well versed in our food? Have you consumed our food?
Yes, I have been to Karibu several times.
Excellent.
I have also, as I said, been to weddings, Ugandan weddings, where I have had a chance to sample your food, which is very good, I must say.
Well, thank you so much for that acknowledgement. And our viewers would love to learn more and are probably anxious to hear about Mali. Something that a lot of people probably know about Mali is that it's the home to Timbuktu University. So please share a little bit of background, a little bit of history on Mali, and introduce Mali to our viewers.
Okay, thank you again for your interest in Mali and our part of Africa in general. Mali today is a country with about 19 million people, 19 to 20 million people. It's a very large country, about 1,204,000 square kilometers, which, for those who know U.S. geography, is about Texas and California combined. So it's a huge country. 2/3 of the country are desert. So that's current Mali as it was created after the French colonial people left in 1960. We became independent on September 22nd, 1960. But before that, going back to the 7th century, there was a succession of empires, the Empire of Ghana, the Empire of Mali, the Empire of Songhai, which give their character to the country as it is today. You talked about Timbuktu, which was a major center of learning with Sankore University, where people came from across the Sahara Desert to study and to learn. We have several other legacies from that period. One of the few things that people don't know, we talk about Africa and democracy and political systems. People don't know that the first constitution that was enacted anywhere is in Africa. Now, if anybody Googles today, you will hear that it's the Constitution of San Marino, which was the oldest, which is still in existence. Of course, the second oldest is the US Constitution. The San Marino Constitution was enacted in 1200. Ours, in 1600, I'm sorry. Ours was in 1235. It's called the Mundane Charter. A copy of it is available to you online. And a few years ago, UNESCO actually registered it as a tangible asset of mankind's history. So the country, this is Mali in the on the political sense. So that's a very, very important thing. And if you read that constitution, you will see that things such as human rights, the sanctity of human rights, the role of women, all of that is enshrined in this constitution. We have also had Mali has always been a great place for production of gold. Our King Mansa Musa, who, according to what is said online, is the richest man in history. Richer than Bill Gates, richer than Warren Buffett, richer than Jeff Bezos. No one's wealth, has equaled his so far. So all of those are legacy of Mali. We have great music, of course. We have our style of music that is very, very well known. We have great cuisine. We have been very good in soccer. We have great history. We have great literary tradition. Or many of you may have heard the quote, in Africa, every old man who dies is like a library that burns. Mm-hmm. That comes from the Malian Amadou Hampâté Bâ. So I could go on for more and more about the history. But fast forward to today, we have, unfortunately, as in many parts of Africa, we are struggling to institute a democratic system of government where people are elected. So I stand by the Ugandan people as you fight to have a representative system of elections so that competent and honest people are elected so that they can help this beautiful country with so many resources to be what it can be for is more than 40 million people. So I'm going to stop here.
Thank you.
Questions that you may have.
Yes, I wanted to ask for our viewers, can you share with us how Mali got to where it is politically? We recently heard that there were 2 military coups as of last August. How did Mali get to where it is currently?
Okay, the thing is, our country is so, we all grew up with a notion that Africa must unite. Our first president was one of the founders of the Organization of African Unity, which preceded the African Union. In our constitution, it's actually one of the first, the only constitution in Africa where Mali has stated that it will renounce national sovereignty for the unity of Africa. Okay, so after we became independent from the French, I'd like to remind people that Mali used to be called the French Sudan. There was Sudan and the French Sudan. So when we became independent in 1960, we and Senegal formed the Federation of Mali. Unfortunately, the federation was short-lived and the two countries split. Mali kept the name Mali and Senegal stayed Senegal. I'd like to also say at this point, I talked about the Empire of Ghana earlier, one of the first big empires in that area. When the Republic of Ghana became independent, it was called the Gold Coast. At that point, the President Nkrumah decided to name the Gold Coast Ghana. So the name Ghana comes from our part of Africa. In any event, getting back to the history, the first president of Mali, Modibo Keïta, instituted a socialist system of government. And this was in the middle of many other countries, French colonies, and the French did not like to see that system, that the experience prosper. So in 1968, there was the first military coup. And since then, the militaries have taken a great liking to power. And every time there is a crisis, they will come and take the power. The last coup happened just last week. It's about our fourth coup that disrupt the civilian rule of a government, and then we get into all kinds of problems. So we are going through this growing pain, just like many other places in Africa. So we identify with the Ugandan people in trying to make sure that your system that is alternate and that we can make sure that competent and honest people can come and rule the country.
Thank you so much. You've pointed out that the African diaspora possesses a lot of strength and power to develop Africa. Tell us what you mean by this.
Okay, so I would like to always remind people that the definition of African diaspora is beyond we, the first or second generation who may have come here by Airbus or Boeing. We also have found here our brothers and sisters who came under other circumstances, who are also part of a diaspora, not only here in the United States, but also in places like Brazil, where you have the largest population of Black people outside of Nigeria. We have Black people in Bolivia, in Colombia, in Ecuador, in all the places in the Caribbean. All of them, we are all part of a diaspora. And for all those of us who are living here, we wouldn't be able to do any of the things that we are doing if it was not for the struggle of our African-American brothers. So they are an integral part of the diaspora, and we have to work very, very closely with them and to make sure that we are a unit to work together. The African Union, in one of the wisest things they did, considered the diaspora as the sixth region in Africa. As you know, there are 5 regions. So we have the 6. This is the ones of us who are here in North America, and I'm going to include Canada in that. We are probably the most, with the highest level of education, the highest level of political achievement. We have doctors, scientists, people working in the World Council, all kinds of work. We have artists. When Beyonce sings a song today, you will hear all over the world, people will listen. You know, wherever you go, the influence of African American culture is there. That's part of the diaspora, along with what we have. And that culture draws from what was brought from Africa. So that diaspora, if we were able to tap it really rightly, it can do great things for Africa. Now, let me talk about, let's say, the Ugandan diaspora here, those who came more recently. I talked earlier about some of the achievements in this small community here in Waltham. We are about 62,000 people in Waltham. 1,500 Ugandans have been able to come to find their way against all kinds of challenges, to institute businesses, to buy property, to send their kids to school. And one of them gets elected to the city council. Imagine if that collective expertise and hard work was somehow channeled to go back home. And I would like Ugandans to remember that there are Ugandans too, but they can go to Mali too with that talent. They can go to Ghana, they can go to Nigeria. We have to consider the entire 54 countries in Africa as our countries. And I know sometimes it's going to be easier for me to succeed in Uganda than in my own country for many, many other reasons. So let's explore the entire thing. You have family back in Uganda, but Africa is your home. So I see us being able to do a lot of things, from doing small projects if we get together, right? If 10 Ugandans get together and everybody says over 1 year, where I'm going to individually collect $1,000, let's say, 10 Ugandans with $1,000 each, that's $10,000. With $10,000, you can go and build a small water system in a village in Uganda. Water is the beginning of everything. It will be clean drinking water for the children and the women and the people who live there. But more importantly, people will be able to grow vegetables and things like that. This is just one area. Water starts everything. And now the technology is available and it's very, very reasonable. It is not costly to operate in the country. So there are so many other things that we can do. The experience that you've taken here, looking at tourism whenever you travel, the amazing sites that you have in Uganda. And I go to, I love nature. Every year I go to Utah and Colorado. Some of the small things that they've been able to do to make them businesses that we who are here can go and learn from. I'd like to, for instance, the Grand Canyon in Arizona, 5 million people every year come to visit. You know, and we have amazing sites in our part of the world. So I will stop there to say that the diaspora, having traveled and having seen anything, and also I want to not to be confined to our communities, to go across the land here, to learn. Learning is not only in the classroom, it's also by traveling, by discovering things that are happening so we can adapt them and take them home.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was an expansion of work of the diaspora and the impact that we can have on the whole continent. of Africa by sharing our resources with each other, by, connecting with each other with our experiences, our education, our expertise, so as to rebuild the whole continent. Thank you so much for that, Lamine. Please stay with us as we talk to our next guest. And later on, when we share questions, when we will have a chance, when callers will be calling in with questions and or comments, we want to have you stay on until then.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Lamine. Before we transition into the next segment, I would want you to teach us and our viewers, how do you say thank you in Mali? How do you say thank you? Teach us a little bit. You know a lot about Uganda. We want to learn something about Mali.
Okay, the most, we have about 17 different languages, but the most widely spoken is Bambara. And Bambara, if you want to say thank you, it is Iniche.
Iniche.
Yeah, so there is a response. If you are a woman, you say Nse. You respond by saying Nse. And if you are a man, you say Mba.
Mba.
So we're going to test this for our viewers. David, Iniche.
Mba.
Okay. Now it's Iniche.
I've already forgotten.
Nse.
Ise.
Nse.
Nse.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Wow. That's very wonderful and very fascinating. We want to thank you on behalf of the Ugandan diaspora community and on behalf of the Africans. We want to say to you that Iniche.
Thank you. Mba.
Thank you so much. That was very, very interesting to hear from Brother Lamine. And dear viewers, we want to right now go into our next segment, and we want to welcome back to the show our brother Milton. Milton, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. It was very informative listening to Brother Lamine,
Yeah, and we would love you to, first of all, how have you been? How are you, Milton?
Oh, I'm good. In fact, I was early on the online protest, the Ugandan protest.
Yeah.
It was very successful. At one point, we had more than 200 people, I believe,
Nice.
online. And then they were also showing us scenes on people that were actually doing physical protest on the ground in the Netherlands and in the United Kingdom, where the G7 meeting is occurring. So it was very productive.
Wow. Thank you so much for representing the voiceless. Thank you so much. Milton, please transition us to what's happening in Uganda and talk about the shared experiences with Mali. How do we use these shared experiences to bring Africa together? Let's begin from there in a few minutes. Yeah.
Okay, absolutely, of course. We have common challenges, common problems. We have common wisdom, common history, common knowledge. So that's the good thing. As you could hear when Brother Lamine was describing the legacy and history of Mali, you were hearing about Uganda, in fact, as well. And we definitely need to have Brother Lamine back on because we have a lot to learn from Mali. Despite the challenges that they faced, and yes, Modibo Keita was one of those early African leaders like Kwame Nkrumah. What a vision for Africa, united Africa, because they knew that's how coming together we could protect our resources, you see, and eventually develop into a superpower like China is today. China only did this in the last 60 years, which means Africa, had it been in control of its resources for the last 60 years, Africa would be probably even more powerful than China because we have much more resources. So I'm glad that he brought that history. But also saying we have a lot to learn from Mali because at one point Mali had a dictator for a very long time as well, Moussa Traore. And he was the one who overthrew Modibo Keita in 68. And he was there until 1991. But how was he transitioned out of power? The students and young people in Mali came out to protest, mass protest. And then the trade unions joined them, the workers joined them. And then at some point, even the soldiers joined them. And at that time, of course, that was the end for the dictator, when the soldiers are now siding with the people. So even though Mali is going through some challenges right now, I have no doubt that given the tradition and history of mass mobilization and protest, that they will succeed. And that is why I think it is also incumbent upon us to learn some of the skills that the civil society in Mali has acquired to remove such an entrenched military dictatorship, because that is the challenge that we are facing in Uganda with our dictator of 35 years. And you said we should start off with how can we work together in alliances? Well, I think this platform is doing a tremendous work in that respect. When I've been here, I've heard you interviewing people from Chad and other parts of Africa. And some of the people that you've interviewed, subsequently, I have communicated with them. And now they're interested in contributing to our resistance against dictatorship in Uganda as well. And now I've also been in contact with some sisters and brothers from Cameroon who are also facing the same challenge of this dictator who has been there for more than 40 years. And there was a Wall Street Journal article that said that he actually spends most of the year living in a hotel in Switzerland. And then he comes to visit his country, once in a while. And how did that article come about? It was one person who was protesting outside the hotel every day until the media said, why is this guy always out here? And then they interviewed him, and that's how they discovered that the president, a so-called president of an African country, was staying in this very expensive hotel, bringing all the cash out of the country. It became a huge story, and other media wrote about it as well. So I'm glad that now we have people from Cameroon who are also involved in our struggle. So it's very important to have a platform such as the one you have in connecting all of us together for the common struggle.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Milton. So how can we utilize the rising migration, the larger diaspora, the social medias, and smartphone penetration to shape the day-to-day discussion back home, challenging government's control of information and public statement?
Okay, well, for example, as I said, the online protest I participated in today was tremendous, because now, first of all, this COVID era has provided us with new opportunities to learn that, you don't have to physically be together, actually, to protest together and to share information, to disseminate information about what is happening in various parts of Africa. So, for example, not all of the people that speak on the online protests are invited speakers. Ordinary people that also log on are allowed to speak for a few minutes. So one of the most interesting remarks today was a 5-minute commentary by a Zambian who has been following the situation in Uganda and is appalled that we have a so-called president who has been in power for longer than he has been alive. This young man is 26 years old. He said, I've been hearing about this individual all my life as president of Uganda. President of Uganda, why? Now 26 years later, I'm still hearing president of Uganda. How can this be? And he's interested in knowing how he can also contribute toward the struggle in Uganda. So this tool, the social media platform, has been very effective. We can now have people in Zambia writing about it. Obviously, we can have people in Mali now also writing about it and joining us in our protest. People in Cameroon, people in Nigeria. We've also joined Nigerians as they're also resisting this very authoritarian Buhari government in Nigeria. So yes, there's no limit to the social media platform. You can also mobilize it to get people to join petitions. As you know, we have a petition which now has almost 9,000 signatures on change.org. And we're demanding that the United States not recognize the illegitimate government of Yoweri Museveni in Uganda. And we are encouraged by the fact that since we had launched the petition, the United States came out with a statement, as you know, on April 16 by the Secretary of State. And he said very explicitly, and this was never said before, about Ugandan elections. The Secretary of State said the Ugandan elections were neither free nor fair. And as you know, if the election is neither free nor fair, it means the person who claims to win cannot be the legitimate president. So that's very important. And we need to press on statements like that. Say, okay, now that you have made this kind of very strong statement, We wanted now to demonstrate it with other actions. If he's legitimate, if he's illegitimate, why are you still training his army? Why are you still sending weapons to Uganda when you know the weapons are being used against civilians? And these are the kind of things that we need to be on top of. When we see a small door open, we have to jump on it. We can't wait back and say, oh, the United States is going to do the right thing. Normally, people never do the right thing until you put pressure on them. In fact, it was an American president, I believe it was FDR, that said, if you want me to do the right thing, then you make me do it. And what did he mean by that? It means you protest, you organize, you agitate, and you make it impossible for me to say no, and then I will do it, because that's how politics normally works, you know?
Wow, very nicely stated. Thank you so much, Milton.
Thank you.
Lamine, do you have a response to that question?
Yes, and Brother Milton has said just more eloquently than I could ever. But I just wanted to say something. We're talking about diaspora power, sort of getting inspiration from what we, that Ugandans can get inspired by what can happen in Mali. Here we are in the belly of the resistance movement in the United States, here in Boston particularly. All of us recall the ugly regime of apartheid.
Yes.
One of the first fights started here in Boston, Massachusetts, when a small group of people led by African Americans started to protest and put pressure on the city of Boston to divest its investment from any company that was doing business in South Africa.
Yes.
There was a professor here, I believe at UMass Dartmouth, who was a leading theorist in protest. All the revolutions that came, even recently, Tahrir Square in Egypt, all of them came to him. I believe it was Professor Sharp, who had this whole thing mapped out in such a way that people from Burma to all these places can get inspiration from. That's right here in Boston, Massachusetts. So another thing that I would like to talk about, following what Brother Milton said about digital, one thing that I found really interesting is I was traveling to the Republic of Congo. I was researching a few terms. So when I did a search here, the search engine produced some results. So I got to Paris to take my connecting flight. I searched the same terms. I got different set of information.
Yes.
And then I got to Congo, searched the same exact terms, got even less information. What I'm trying to say, the algorithm, I don't know how it's programmed.
Yes.
It favors those of us who are situated here in the West, particularly in the United States.
Yes.
I would even like to say, particularly in the New England area, with all the institutions of higher learning, I don't know if that volume in search queries and things like that ends up producing algorithms that help.
Yes.
But I can tell you, we get more information here than people back home.
Absolutely.
So we have to work to be able to relay that information so that what we do is not based on hearsay. And one of the things that I'd like to say also is a lot of misinformation these days.
Yes.
There are some actors at work who don't want to see progress in Africa. Absolutely. Every time we do something, they create false narratives that they spread. I'm sure you've seen them. Every time I hear things about, you mentioned COVID earlier, people who don't want Africans to be vaccinated have spread all kinds of problems, rumors about the COVID vaccine.
Yes.
Okay? So that you have places where the vaccines are there and there is nobody to take the vaccine.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. So we have a role in that digital space to be able also to sort of get information and make sure that we get it to the people. So at least their decisions are based on facts, not hearsay.
I hope you write something about that topic. That's very critical, that more people need to know about what you just said.
Thank you. And one more thing I wanted to say about Ugandans. there is a very active Ugandan woman. I'm going to mention her name here. Her name is Vivian. She has started this thing about how in the healthcare system, the training and thing does not take into account the color of our skin.
Interesting.
When they are describing symptoms,
It's true.
okay, they will say if you have this, you will have red patches on your skin.
Right.
But not all black red patches, you know. So this is again another Ugandan, but it's something that she's taken that has global implications.
Yes.
For how doctors are trained, how diseases are thinking. I went to get my COVID vaccine at the Mass General Hospital, one of the best hospitals in the world. They gave me a pamphlet describing to me what could happen if there is a rejection of someone. Right. And what the two pictures they saw were of white people's skin.
Right.
And when there is a certain reaction, it will be red. But I don't think that in my skin it will be red because my skin is too dark.
Absolutely.
So this is another thing. But there is a Ugandan woman who has taken this issue and is making sure that universities and training centers know about this, that Black people across the world, okay, that our skin tone is taken into account when you describe the symptoms of a certain disease.
Right. Or she needs to be interviewed. I need her name too.
Thank you so much for that. I excuse me, given that we're talking about the power of the diaspora, I wanted to ask a question. How do we cultivate effective leadership on the continent out here in the diaspora? And the reason why I ask this is recently former President Trump acknowledged and congratulated the president of Nigeria for banning Twitter in the country after Twitter banned him for making tweets about warning the southeastern people of Nigeria, who are predominantly occupied by the Igbo people, of a potential repeat of the 1967 Biafran Civil War. My question is, how do we cultivate effective African leadership amongst our African leaders when we have such petty leadership already in government seats?
Well, from my end, I would say we just continue the protest that we are doing. I think banning Twitter actually was a good contribution to the people who are resisting against them. He almost gave them a gift, the meal on a plate for them to consume. How do you ban Twitter in this 21st century, especially in a sophisticated country such as Nigeria? Nigeria, they're some of the most sophisticated consumers of social media space, of the most updated technological equipment. So that's a defeatist move. I can't see that move even surviving for a long time. I'm sure even people within his administration are saying, Commander-in-Chief, I don't think this is going to work. So let's see how how long that works. But also, I like the question also in that sense, that we need to support African leaders who are legitimately elected, who are not abusing their citizens. And we shouldn't say, oh, because this is not my country. No, we shouldn't do it. So when we identify any African leaders who are doing positive things in the interest of their citizens, let's support them. Let's support them on social media space, and let's join events that people from that particular country are organizing to support their leaders. And that's on the other hand. And then on the other hand, when we have leaders that are also tyrants and repressive and oppressing their people, then we should also come together, regardless of what part of Africa we come from.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Milton, for sharing.
I think Lamin may have an observation on that as well.
Yes, Lamin, what?
Yeah,
I'm gonna give you an opportunity too.
I agree with you. And as I travel across Africa and I talk to those who are not in government, it's amazing the number of talented talented people that the system doesn't allow to express themselves.
Absolutely.
So and again, we can help amplify their voices and their cases. One of the things that I would like to remind everybody of is that the African Union stated that we are the 6th region of Africa. There is an African Parliament, okay, of which people are elected. I would like us, so if we are the 6th region, I would like us to be officially recognized so that at every meeting of the African Union, that representatives, and I'm talking about real representative of a diaspora, go to speak. This is extremely important. So that means we have to get organized. Yes. If they want us to participate, then we have to call them on this. Because our voice, we are not going to be afraid of being in prison. Okay? Right. That's one of the things that our presence here in this country.
Right. Advantage.
And we should not also be too cocky to think that we have a solution.
Right.
We can come and impose our views on the people that are there, that have been doing the study. Believe it or not, if you are a Malian American or a Ugandan American, there are certain things that you don't quite understand as people who are there too.
On the ground.
Yeah, so we have to respect that. Just like they also have to welcome us, because in some places, the diaspora is not welcome, really, by the governing people. And sometimes because it felt like, okay, there is a scarcity of resources, you have your job in America, why do you want to come and compete? Right. And I'm saying it's not here to compete, it's to multiply and make sure that what's there can grow. If the pie is grower, we all can get more of it.
Absolutely.
Wow, thank you so much, gentlemen. I just feel so excited. I feel we are on the verge of something great, a rebirth of a new Africa that unites each and everyone. And yeah, thank you so much. Very, very profound and wonderful wisdom and insight from both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for both of you.
Yeah, right now we just want to open up the conversation to you callers, dear viewers. This is the time. The number is on your screen. Our producer is putting it on the screen, 978-413-6249. Feel free to call. It's also on WhatsApp. And feel free, wherever you are, to be part of the conversation. And if you have a question for our guests, feel free to ask right about now. Judy, what do you have to say about all that?
I'm always excited every time we have someone who is from either Mali or another country, just sharing their experiences and just realizing that we're all, sitting at the same table, eating very similar food, and we can all share our resources and our supply to feed one another. So it's always such a blessing and such an honor to have different perspectives.
Absolutely, because those are just lines on the sand.
That's right.
Drawn at the Berlin Conference,
That's right.
Those are lines we should be working very hard to eliminate those borders and have a united states of Africa.
That's
I also like what Brother Lamin was saying in terms of the history of democracy and governance. We don't need to learn these things from the West. These are things we had before the pre-colonial history. But sometimes when it's reported in other parts of the world, especially in the West, they make it sound as if we have no history of democracy or self-governance, as if our history started with slavery and the arrival of colonial rule, So that's why it's very good and refreshing to hear our brother remind us of that aspect of African history.
That's right. Milton, you shared about the G7 summit that's happening this weekend and the protests that you were on earlier today. And my question is, what is the outcome that Ugandans, friends to Uganda, are anticipating or hoping for out of the protest?
Okay, well, in practical terms, I think it would be to block the IMF loan, which is now under consideration, the $900 million, which the board of directors of the IMF is considering based on the request of the Ugandan administration of General Museveni. for many reasons, of course. Number one, he's not the legitimate president of Uganda. He does not have the authority to encumber the country with almost $1 billion loan, number one, for future generations to repay that loan. Number two, Uganda is one of the most corrupt governments on the continent. Last year alone, the $300 million loan from the World Bank, which was supposedly to fight the pandemic, was diverted into a classified account, which actually goes to the State House, which of course the dictator controls, and which goes to the military and the police, meaning the money from the World Bank is probably what is being used to deploy all those soldiers and police that we've seen deployed since before the election, during the election, and now during the campaigns of kidnapping and torture and killing of young people, because the regime is fearing a possible popular uprising. So I think it was important to have this kind of protest today to make the G7 leaders know that you can't be speaking from both sides of your mouth.
That's right.
When before the US president went there, Biden, he said one of the things we want to recommit to is the Atlantic Charter. The Atlantic Charter, of course, was the document that came after World War II, when Churchill and Roosevelt said, we are going to have a different kind of dispensation after this World War II. We're going to now be allowing people that were formerly colonies to govern themselves, to determine their own future, self-determination. Of course, that was good on paper, but it was not really implemented until Africans started resisting really in the 50s and in the 60s. And then we saw formal decolonization. So we don't want a repeat of that Atlantic Charter the first time. This time we want to hold you to your words. You can't say democracy is good for us, but not good for Africans.
That's right.
And support dictators like Museveni with a $1 billion almost loan and military weapons. So that, I think, was the key goal that people were trying to make in this protest.
Thank you for that clarification. It's very, very needed, especially this weekend as that G Summit continues until, I believe, tomorrow evening or Monday.
Correct.
Thank you, Milton.
Yeah, so we just want to thank you so much for sparing time to come and communicate with us and with our dear viewers. Viewers, we promised you that we will bring you, we will let your voice, we will make your voice amplified, and we will bring to you the people who really speak on the behalf of those who are voiceless. And I believe today we really are very honored. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for representing and for speaking out of your hearts. We are so excited, and as we come to a close, what are your final takes? Milton, to begin with you.
Well, I'm very re-energized whenever I come to a forum like this and I hear African brother coming from another part of the continent and yet sharing such similar history, such similar passion and desire to see Africans really realizing their full potential. Because he's absolutely right. It may be up to 80, 90% of African women and men never realizing their potential and providing the best that they could, because power is so monopolized sometimes by a small elite. And then when you have a small elite, add upon that an elite that wants to hold on to power for 20, 30 years. So that is really what's holding Africa back. But when I come to a place like this and I listen to a compatriot talking about the same type of strategies that we should pursue, I'm re-energized, and I go out and I continue the work that I do as well.
Will you share with us? Will you share with us about the year of the return in Ghana and how it would look like if countries across the continent had years of returns? Lamine.
Yeah, for your viewers who may not know, the year 2019 was the 400th anniversary of the shipment of the first slaves across the Atlantic. And another thing that we don't talk about much is the number of people who were shipped across the Sahara to go to Asia.
Yes.
There's a huge thing that has not yet been discussed. So this anniversary, the government of Ghana decided to open up and invite people from the diaspora to come back home, called the Year of Return. It was a very, very successful effort to alert a lot of people, particularly African Americans, who went back home. By many, many of them.
Yes.
To 1 million people who went, some for a short time, some to stay there. I heard last time that Stevie Wonder decided to move to Ghana. There are many others who went, some for tourism, some to check it out and see what it is. This is something that we should keep doing more of now that information is not controlled by just a few channels. Yeah. And I'm amazed by how many of the people who went there have their own YouTube channel talking about what their experience was like, what it was like to buy a house or rent a house, what are the difficulties for those who are coming, this is how you should prepare. That's because, you don't need to say that on CNN or ABC or Radio France International or BBC, because all these channels are available. So that is an amazing thing. And I would like to also, maybe I'm anticipating you here, to talk about, on that vein, talk about some of the positive things that are happening on the continent.
Right.
That make me really, really gung-ho. Because sometimes, let's face it, when you see all these coups and you get discouraged. You just you just almost give up. But there are few things that are happening. One thing that I found particularly interesting is the two countries, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, which are the world's top producers of cocoa. Okay? Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire is the world's top producer of cocoa. Cocoa, of course, is what you use to make chocolate. Okay. You can see what role chocolate plays in people's lives here. The M&Ms that kids, exactly. The M&Ms that kids use, and when you are courting a woman, you bring her chocolate. When your wife is mad at you, you bring her chocolate. I mean, the largest producer of this commodity is in Cote d'Ivoire. Yet, very few people know this. So the government of Ghana and the government of Cote d'Ivoire decided to join efforts to say that, we're going to put pressure so that we don't just export the raw cocoa, that some processing happens here. And about, I would say 8 weeks ago, the president of Ghana went to Switzerland, which is one of the big importer of Ghanaian cocoa. Swiss chocolate is very good. Right. When you think chocolate, you think Lind, you think Godiva. None of those have anything to do with Ghana or here, Hershey's chocolate. So he told them, the business people and the president of Switzerland, we're going to make sure now that we just don't export the raw cocoa, that the processing takes place at home so that those jobs and value added are created back home. Okay, so if that thinking happens, in Mali we produce cotton, in Uganda you produce cotton, and many other places. Imagine if we're able to get together to make sure that African cotton is not exported raw. Right. And then we import even the little cotton balls that you use to clean wounds in hospitals. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay. Yeah. So so that development, I think, warmed my heart, and I hope that continues. The second one is that when the Egyptians decided to enlarge the Suez Canal, which is one of the major shipping channels in the world, we may remember that about 6 weeks ago when it was clogged, it impacted the entire world. Right. That belongs to the people of Egypt. So they decided to enlarge it. Rather than going to the IMF or anything, they resorted to the diaspora. Right. They raised over $8 billion in less than 3 days. Okay? These Egyptians working in the Middle East and other places, they subscribe and they raise the money and they enlarge the channel and their own terms.
Yeah.
Okay? And this thing is possible in many other places. Another thing that I'd like to say is 2020, the pandemic revealed a lot of things. Okay, African governments really rose to the occasion. Talk about places like in Senegal, in Morocco, and places where they were able to put things together quickly, making masks. When we were here in the US, we could not have masks. People in Benin were able to put the tailors together to make masks available locally. So another gem from that thing is Ethiopian Airlines.
Yes.
You know that.
One of the best.
All the airlines except 3 made profit. One of them was Ethiopian Airlines.
Yes.
In fact, did they not only make profit, they expanded. And using the expertise that they have and their financial muscle, they are rescuing the venerable South African Airways,
right,
which was one of the top airlines that sort of was mismanaged almost into the ground.
Right.
Ethiopian Airline, from what everybody calls one of the poorest countries in the world, was able to go and help them. They helped Chad, they helped Malawi. They are helping all these other countries. You see, when Pan-Africanism works,
yes,
it does just amazing things to us. So those kinds of things, more than the mineral resources that we have in our ground, okay? Those kinds of things are really what I think would make a difference for us.
I agree.
Because that takes manpower, that takes thinking, that takes innovation, thinking out of the box. Yeah. That's what we need to do that. Because I always say those natural resources, we've been working on them for millions of years. Except for gold or a few things here, we haven't been able to do much with them. And some of them, we don't even know where they are. And even if we do, we don't have the technology or the know-how to know what to do with them. But when we develop the mindset and the ability to conceive business models outside of the norm, we have a lot of things, great things in store for them. These dictators, they will all go by the wayside. Yes.
They will, and when they go, we need to be prepared.
Exactly.
I just want to say one thing. I know we run out of time. I held this piece of paper up because before we had the conversation, I had written down chocolate. Mm-hmm. And why did I write this down? Because I share the same position with you. And my suggestion was going to be, we need to mobilize people in diaspora so that we can go to places like Ghana and Ivory Coast and get involved in investing, in setting up small productions and start producing chocolate in these countries and exporting it as chocolate and not as cocoa. So I'm glad you touched on the same topic.
Thank you.
Great minds think alike, don't they? Yes, they do. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us this afternoon. Thank you to our viewers for being with us. We didn't have any calls today, David, but we thank you for the conversation we were able to have. And we
I think everybody wanted to listen to Lamin. That's why they didn't call.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and for sharing Mali with us. We look forward to being with you all again. My name is Judith Bukenya.
And I'm David Chiladila.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us. Dave, Milton, great pleasure to be on the same panel with you.
Oh, likewise. We'll be in touch for sure. Definitely.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.